The first thing that struck him was the light. It wasn't like sunlight, nor was it artificial in any way he could comprehend. It shimmered with an ethereal glow, shifting colors as if alive, gold melting into silver, then deepening to sapphire before fading back to gold again. Captain Elias had seen strange things during his years serving on the outer colonies, but this defied every law of physics and reason he'd ever known. His boots made no sound against the crystalline surface beneath him, though they should have clanged loudly given their reinforced steel construction. The air smelled faintly sweet, like blooming flowers mixed with something metallic, yet not unpleasant. He tried to steady his breathing, aware that his pulse hammered erratically in his ears. This place wasn't just alien. It felt otherworldly, a realm beyond comprehension. Elias scanned the horizon, though horizon seemed too mundane a word for what lay before him. Towering spires of translucent material stretched upward, catching the shifting light and refracting it into dazzling patterns across the sky. Between them floated structures that appeared to defy gravity entirely, hovering silently as if held aloft by sheer willpower. There were no signs of life, not immediately, but he knew better than to trust appearances when dealing with unknown civilizations. He adjusted the grip on his rifle, its familiar weight grounding him amid all the surreal beauty surrounding him. His team had been sent here under orders from command after intercepting strange signals emanating from this sector of space. What those signals meant, or even who or what might be sending them, remained a mystery. All Elias knew was that they had landed near one of these floating cities, only to find themselves suddenly alone. One moment his squad stood together, scanning their surroundings cautiously, and the next, poof. Just like that, everyone else vanished without a trace. Now, standing amidst this impossible landscape, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Not in a hostile way, necessarily, but more like someone observing an interesting specimen under glass. Or perhaps studying him. He couldn't tell which unnerved him more, the absence of danger or the overwhelming sense that unseen eyes lingered nearby. As he took another cautious step forward, the ground beneath him pulsed softly, almost imperceptibly. It wasn't threatening, it felt almost welcoming, like a heartbeat syncing with his own. But still, his instincts screamed at him to stay alert. Something about this world didn't feel random or chaotic. Everything seemed deliberate, calculated, purposeful. And whatever force orchestrated such precision would surely notice an intruder sooner rather than later. So he waited, rifle raised, heart pounding, trying to make sense of where, or when, he might actually be. Whatever happened next, Elias resolved silently, he wouldn't go down without answers. The silence shattered abruptly, replaced by a sound unlike anything Elias had encountered before. It began low, almost subsonic, resonating through his chest like distant thunder. Then it grew louder, richer, layered, a symphony composed of tones both human and alien, blending seamlessly into something hauntingly beautiful. Before he could pinpoint its source, movement caught his eye at the edge of his vision. Turning sharply, he froze. There she stood. She emerged from between two towering spires, her presence commanding attention without effort. Her form radiated elegance, every line of her body flowing as though sculpted by some divine artist. She wasn't merely humanoid, she transcended humanity. Her skin shimmered faintly, iridescent like mother of pearl, catching the ambient light in ways that shifted depending on how you looked at her. Eyes large and luminous regarded him curiously, their color changing subtly with each blink, from opalescent white to deep violet, then back again. Her hair cascaded down her shoulders in waves of liquid silver, moving as though stirred by an invisible breeze. But it was her aura that truly overwhelmed him. It wasn't visible in the traditional sense, yet it filled the space around her, pressing gently against his consciousness. A sensation akin to awe swept over him, mingled with something else he couldn't quite name. An inexplicable pull, as though she were gravity itself drawing him closer. For a moment, Elias forgot to breathe. Her lips parted slightly, revealing teeth that gleamed faintly, perfectly aligned. When she spoke, her voice carried a melodic quality, rich and resonant, as if multiple harmonies wove together within each syllable. "You are not of my kind," she said simply, tilting her head slightly as if studying a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. "No," Elias managed finally, forcing himself to speak despite the lump lodged in his throat. "I'm a human." "Human," she repeated, rolling the word over her tongue as though tasting it for the first time. Her gaze traveled slowly up and down his frame, taking in his uniform, the insignia on his chest, the dirt smudged across his armor. Despite her scrutiny, there was no malice in her expression, only curiosity. Intense, unrelenting curiosity. "And you?" he asked, surprising himself with the steadiness of his own voice. "Who, or what are you?" A flicker of amusement danced across her features, fleeting but unmistakable. "I am Zenara," she replied, "queen of this domain." She gestured vaguely toward the floating city behind her, encompassing its sprawling grandeur in one fluid motion. "And now I ask, why have you come to my world, human?" Elias hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Was she friend or foe? Ally or captor? Her demeanor gave nothing away, save for an intelligence far older, and perhaps far wiser, than anything he'd encountered before. "We received signals," he began carefully. "From your people, we thought. We came seeking answers." Her brow furrowed faintly, a gesture so human it startled him. "Signals?" she echoed, her tone laced with genuine confusion. Then understanding dawned, and she nodded slowly. "Ah, you misunderstand. These emanations are not intentional, they are remnants, echoes of what once was. My people do not reach out to yours, nor yours to mine." The weight of her words settled heavily upon him. If the signals weren't deliberate, then what had brought them here? Fate? Coincidence? Or something far less benign? Before he could respond, she took a step closer, closing the distance between them until mere feet separated them. Up close, her presence was even more formidable, her beauty almost painful to behold. She tilted her head again, her gaze locking onto his with an intensity that made his stomach churn. "Tell me, human," she said softly, her melodic voice dropping to a whisper. "Are you bound to another?" The question blindsided him. "What?" he stammered, thrown off balance. "No, I mean, yes. I don't understand." Her smile widened slightly, enigmatic and knowing. "Bound," she clarified, placing one delicate hand over her chest. "To another of your kind. Are you single, as you say?" For a moment, Elias could only stare at her, utterly bewildered. Of all the questions she might have asked, about his mission, his intentions, his species, this was not what he had expected. Heat rose to his cheeks, equal parts embarrassment and disbelief. He fumbled for words, acutely aware of how ridiculous he must sound. Yes, I suppose I am." Zenara's expression softened, though her eyes remained sharp, probing. "Interesting," she murmured, almost to herself. Then, raising her voice ever so slightly, she added, "Rare indeed is the creature who ventures so far from home unclaimed." Unclaimed. The word struck him oddly, carrying connotations he couldn't fully grasp. Did she view him as property? An asset? Or was this simply her way of categorizing relationships among humans? He wanted to ask, to clarify, but something held him back. Perhaps it was fear of offending her, or worse, misunderstanding her entirely. Instead, he opted for a safer topic. "Why does it matter?" he ventured cautiously. "Whether I'm claimed or not?" Her laughter rippled through the air like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, musical and disarming. "Because, dear human," she replied, leaning closer until he could see the intricate patterns swirling within her irises, "it changes everything." With that cryptic statement hanging between them, she turned gracefully and began walking away, her movements fluid and unhurried. After a few steps, she paused and glanced back over her shoulder, her shimmering hair cascading forward like a curtain of starlight. "Come," she commanded gently, extending one slender arm toward him. "There is much to show you." Elias hesitated, torn between instinct and duty. Every fiber of his being urged him to follow her, to uncover the secrets of this alien world and perhaps even learn why he had been singled out. Yet caution whispered warnings in the back of his mind, reminding him of the risks inherent in trusting the unknown. Still, he moved forward, unable to resist the magnetic pull of her presence. As he fell into step beside her, the pulsing rhythm of the ground beneath his feet seemed to quicken, matching the cadence of his racing heart. Whatever awaited him ahead, he realized dimly, would change him forever. They walked together through the labyrinthine expanse of the alien city, each step taking them deeper into its surreal majesty. Towering crystalline structures loomed above them, refracting the ever-shifting light into dazzling prismatic displays that painted the air with rainbows. The ground beneath their feet continued to pulse rhythmically, as if responding to their presence, or perhaps to hers alone. Zanara glided effortlessly ahead, her movements graceful and unhurried, while Elias struggled to keep pace, his boots clanging awkwardly against the smooth surface. Despite the breathtaking scenery, Elias found himself increasingly preoccupied with the queen beside him. Her proximity was intoxicating, her shimmering form casting an ethereal glow that seemed to illuminate everything around her. He couldn't help but steal glances at her profile, the curve of her cheek, the delicate slope of her neck, the way her silvery hair flowed like liquid moonlight. Each detail only deepened his fascination, leaving him simultaneously awestruck and uneasy. "You seem troubled," Zanara observed suddenly, her melodic voice breaking the silence. She slowed her pace slightly, allowing him to catch up fully. "Is there something you wish to ask?" Elias hesitated, torn between curiosity and apprehension. Finally, he decided honesty might serve him better than guardedness. "Your question earlier," he began cautiously, "about whether I'm single. Why does it matter? What difference does it make?" Her lips curved into a faint smile, enigmatic and knowing. "Among my people," she explained, "such matters hold great significance. Bonds shape us, define us. To be unbound is rare, and often viewed as untapped potential." "Potential for what?" he pressed, unable to mask his confusion. "For connection," she replied simply, her luminous eyes locking onto his. "For union. For growth." Her words sent a shiver down his spine, though he couldn't quite determine why. Was she implying something personal? Or merely explaining cultural norms? Before he could probe further, she gestured toward one of the hovering structures ahead. "Here," she said, changing the subject smoothly. "This is where we shall begin." The structure before them resembled a massive orb suspended in midair, its surface rippling faintly as though made of liquid glass. As they approached, it split open vertically, revealing an interior bathed in soft, golden light. Zanara stepped inside without hesitation, beckoning him to follow. Reluctantly, Elias obeyed, stepping across the threshold into what could only be described as another world entirely. Inside, the orb seemed impossibly vast, far larger than its exterior suggested. Walls of translucent material curved upward into a domed ceiling, etched with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly with inner light. Floating platforms hovered at varying heights, each displaying holographic projections of alien landscapes, creatures, and symbols that Elias couldn't decipher. The air hummed softly, resonating with a frequency that vibrated gently against his skin. "This is our archive," Zanara announced, sweeping her arm outward to encompass the space. "A repository of knowledge spanning millennia. Here lies the history of my people, and perhaps, someday, yours as well." Elias gazed around in wonder, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of information surrounding him. "Someday," he echoed, turning back to her. "Do you think humans will join you here?" Her expression softened, tinged with something akin to melancholy. "Perhaps," she murmured. "But first, there is much work to be done. Much to understand." Before Elias could respond, a sudden ripple of energy coursed through the room, causing the holograms to flicker erratically. Zanara stiffened, her luminous eyes narrowing as she turned toward one of the platforms. On its surface, an unfamiliar symbol flared brightly, pulsing with increasing intensity. "What is that?" Elias asked, instinctively reaching for his rifle. "An anomaly," Zanara replied tersely, her voice losing its melodic quality and adopting a sharper edge. "One I did not anticipate." The orb trembled faintly, the golden light dimming as shadows crept across the walls. Elias felt a chill run down his spine as the temperature dropped noticeably. Whatever this anomaly was, it clearly unsettled even the regal alien queen. "We must leave," she declared abruptly, grabbing his arm with surprising strength. Her touch sent a jolt through him, electric and unsettling. "Now." Without waiting for a response, she pulled him toward the exit, her usual grace replaced by urgency. As they emerged back into the open air, the once vivid cityscape now seemed muted, the vibrant colors dulled and the pulsing rhythm of the ground faltering. In the distance, a low rumble echoed, growing louder with each passing second. "What's happening?" Elias demanded, struggling to match her swift pace. "I do not know," Zanara admitted, her voice tight with tension. "But it is no coincidence that it began when you arrived." The accusation hung in the air between them, unspoken yet undeniable. Elias clenched his jaw, grappling with the implications. Had his presence somehow triggered this disturbance? Or was it something else entirely, something neither of them understood? Behind them, the orb collapsed inward with a deafening crack, imploding into a singularity of darkness before vanishing completely. The sight left Elias reeling, his mind racing to process the enormity of what he had witnessed. Whatever force governed this alien world, it was far beyond anything he had imagined, and far more dangerous. As they hurried through the streets, the city itself seemed to react to their flight. Structures groaned and shifted, their crystalline surfaces cracking under unseen pressure. The once gentle pulses beneath their feet turned erratic, jarring and unpredictable. Zanara's grip on his arm tightened, her luminous eyes darting warily from side to side. "Where are we going?" Elias shouted over the rising cacophony of collapsing architecture. "To safety," she replied curtly, though her tone betrayed uncertainty. "If such a place still exists." The rumbling grew louder, shaking the very foundation of the city. Above them, the floating spires began to tilt precariously, some crashing down in slow-motion descents that sent shockwaves rippling outward. Debris rained from the skies, forcing them to dodge and weave through the chaos. Elias's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing the frantic rhythm of the crumbling world around them. Suddenly, Zanara stopped short, yanking him behind a jagged shard of fallen crystal just as a massive spire toppled nearby, smashing into the ground with enough force to send tremors through the earth. Dust billowed around them, choking the air and obscuring their vision. For a moment, they crouched together in silence, listening to the destruction unfold. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Zanara muttered under her breath, her voice trembling, not with fear, but with anger. "Not here. Not now." Elias glanced at her, startled by the raw emotion in her usually composed demeanor. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the din. "What's causing this?" She hesitated, her luminous eyes clouded with conflict. Finally she sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. "I believe it may be you." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. "Me?" he echoed, incredulous. "How could I possibly?" "You carry something within you," she interrupted, her gaze piercing. "Something ancient. Something powerful. I sensed it the moment I saw you, though I chose to ignore it. Now," she trailed off, gesturing vaguely at the devastation surrounding them. "Now, it seems I was wrong to do so." Elias stared at her, his thoughts spinning wildly. "What are you talking about? I'm just a soldier. I don't have any." "Not knowingly," she interjected sharply. "But ignorance does not negate truth. Your presence has awakened forces long dormant. Forces I cannot control." Before he could respond, a new sound cut through the chaos, a low, guttural roar that reverberated through the air like a warning. Both of them froze, their heads snapping toward the source. Emerging from the haze of dust and smoke came a figure unlike anything Elias had ever seen. It stood nearly twice his height, its body covered in plates of obsidian-like armor that shifted and rippled as though alive. Its eyes burned with a cold white fire, locking onto them with predatory focus. Zanara cursed under her breath, rising to her full height. "It's begun," she whispered grimly. "What is that thing?" Elias demanded, clutching his rifle tightly. "A guardian," she replied, her voice strained. "Or what remains of one. Once protectors of my people, they have devolved into something else. Something driven purely by instinct." The creature let out another bone-chilling roar, its armored form advancing steadily toward them. With each step, the ground quaked violently, cracks spreading outward like spiderwebs. Elias aimed his weapon, firing a burst of rounds directly at the beast. The bullets ricocheted harmlessly off its shifting surface, sparking but failing to penetrate. "It's no use," Zanara shouted, grabbing his arm again. "We need to move." She dragged him away from their makeshift shelter, sprinting toward a narrow alley between two partially collapsed buildings. Behind them, the creature roared again, louder this time, its fury palpable. The chase was relentless, the Guardian gaining ground with terrifying speed. Elias risked a glance over his shoulder, watching in horror as it swiped at a nearby spire, toppling it effortlessly. "Where are we running to?" he panted, struggling to keep up with Zanara's supernatural agility. "There's a sanctuary," she replied, her voice terse. "A place untouched by decay. If we can reach it, we might stand a chance." "Might?" he echoed, his voice cracking slightly. "That's reassuring." Her response was cut short as the ground beneath them buckled violently, throwing them off balance. Elias hit the pavement hard, pain shooting through his side. Zanara stumbled but quickly regained her footing, turning back to pull him upright. "We don't have time for this," she snapped, hauling him to his feet. "Move." They pushed onward, adrenaline fueling their desperate flight. Ahead, the alley opened into a wide plaza dominated by a towering monolith that pulsed with a steady, crimson light. Unlike the rest of the city, this structure remained intact, its surface smooth and unblemished. Zanara pointed toward it, shouting, "There! That's our only hope." But as they neared the sanctuary, the Guardian lunged, closing the gap between them with horrifying speed. Zanara shoved Elias forward, urging him to keep running while she turned to face the beast. Raising her hands, she unleashed a wave of energy that slammed into the creature, halting its advance momentarily. The blast illuminated her face, revealing a look of fierce determination, and something else. "Sacrifice. Go," she commanded, her voice ringing with authority. "I'll hold it off." "No," Elias shouted, skidding to a halt. "I'm not leaving you." Her luminous eyes met his, filled with equal parts resolve and sorrow. "You must," she insisted. "For both our sakes." The Guardian recovered, shaking off the effects of her attack and charging forward once more. Time seemed to slow as Elias wrestled with indecision. Every instinct screamed at him to fight alongside her, to refuse abandonment. Yet deep down, he knew she was right. Without her guidance, without reaching the sanctuary, all would be lost, including any chance of understanding the forces tearing this world apart. Reluctantly, he turned and ran, each step heavier than the last. Behind him, he heard the clash of energy and brute force, Zanara's defiant cries mingling with the creature's enraged bellows. Tears blurred his vision as he reached the monolith, its crimson glow enveloping him like a warm embrace. He hesitated at the threshold, looking back one final time. Zanara stood defiantly against the Guardian, her shimmering form radiant even in the face of certain doom. Their eyes locked across the distance, and in that fleeting moment, Elias felt something profound pass between them. Trust, regret, and perhaps even the beginnings of something more. The crimson glow of the monolith enveloped Elias completely, pulling him into a void that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no light, no sensation at all. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the darkness gave way to an explosion of color and motion. He stumbled forward, disoriented, only to find himself standing on what appeared to be solid ground, but this wasn't the alien city he'd left behind. The landscape before him was surreal, a kaleidoscope of shifting terrain that defied logic. Hills rippled like liquid, their surfaces shimmering with iridescent hues. Trees made of translucent crystal swayed gently despite the absence of wind, their branches tinkling softly like chimes. Above, the sky churned with vibrant clouds that pulsed rhythmically, casting ever-changing shadows across the land. It was beautiful, yet unervingly alien, a dreamscape too perfect to trust. Elias turned in place, searching for any sign of Zanara or the Guardian, but they were nowhere to be seen. Instead, he noticed something strange, faint outlines etched into the air around him, glowing faintly like ghostly pathways. As he reached out tentatively to touch one, his hand passed through it, leaving behind ripples that spread outward like water disturbed by a stone. The sensation sent a jolt up his arm, not painful, but electric, as though he'd brushed against raw energy. Before he could process what these ethereal trails might mean, a voice echoed from somewhere nearby, not audible so much as felt, resonating directly within his mind. "Welcome, traveler." Startled, Elias spun around, rifle raised instinctively. But instead of an enemy, he found himself face to face with himself. At least, it looked like him. The figure before him mirrored his appearance exactly, down to the dirt smudged across his armor and the weary expression etched onto his face. Yet something about it was subtly wrong. The eyes, perhaps, which glowed faintly with the same crimson hue as the monolith. Or maybe it was the way the figure stood perfectly still, radiating an eerie calm that contrasted sharply with Elias's own ragged breathing. "What are you?" Elias demanded, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound resolute. "I am you," the doppelganger replied simply, its lips moving in perfect sync with the words reverberating inside Elias's skull. "Or rather, I am what you could become, if you choose wisely." "Choose," Elias repeated, lowering his weapon slightly. "Choose what?" The duplicate tilted its head, mimicking a gesture Zanara had used earlier. "To embrace your destiny, or reject it. To wield the power within you, or let it consume everything." Elias took a step back, his thoughts racing. Power? What power? He was just a soldier, a man who followed orders and fought battles he barely understood. How could he possibly have anything to do with whatever cataclysmic force Zanara claimed he carried? As if reading his mind, the doppelganger continued, "You underestimate yourself, human. You carry fragments of something ancient, something vast. Fragments awakened when you crossed into our realm. Whether you intended it or not, your presence has disrupted the balance, and now you must decide how to restore it." "This is insane," Elias muttered, shaking his head. "I don't even know what you're talking about." The duplicate's expression softened, almost sympathetically. "Then allow me to show you." With a wave of its hand, the landscape shifted dramatically. The crystalline trees dissolved into mist, replaced by towering structures that resembled the alien city, but twisted, corrupted. Buildings sagged under invisible weight, their once pristine surfaces cracked and oozing black ichor. Shadows writhed along the ground, coalescing into grotesque shapes that snarled silently before dispersing again. In the distance, the crimson monolith loomed larger than ever, its glow pulsating erratically like a dying heartbeat. "This is the future," the doppelganger said gravely. "If you fail." Elias stared in horror, unable to look away from the devastation unfolding before him. "Fail at what?" he whispered hoarsely. "To master the fragments within you," came the reply. "They are remnants of an ancient entity, long thought destroyed. My people, we called it Etherian. A being of immense power, capable of creating worlds, or destroying them. When my kind sealed it away eons ago, we believed we had succeeded. But fragments escaped, scattered across dimensions. And somehow, you have become a vessel for them." The revelation hit Elias like a tidal wave, knocking the breath from his lungs. "That's impossible," he stammered. I can't." "You already are," the doppelganger interrupted, stepping closer until they were nearly nose to nose. Its crimson eyes bore into his, unyielding. "Feel it. Deep inside. The pull, the hum, the whispers. You've felt it since you arrived here, haven't you? That sense of connection. Of belonging." Elias froze, memories flooding back. The strange warmth in his chest whenever Zanara touched him. The way the ground beneath his feet pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. The inexplicable certainty that he was meant to be here, in this alien world, at this precise moment. Could it all be tied to some ancient, cosmic force buried within him? "But why me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why would whatever this is choose me?" "It didn't choose you," the doppelganger corrected. "You chose it. By coming here, by walking among us, you opened yourself to its influence. And now, whether you like it or not, you are part of its story." The weight of those words settled heavily upon Elias, pressing against his shoulders like an invisible burden. If what the doppelganger said was true, then his presence here wasn't accidental, it was fated. But fate brought responsibility, and responsibility required choices. Choices he wasn't sure he was ready to make. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked finally, meeting the duplicate's gaze with newfound resolve. "What happens if I walk away?" The doppelganger smiled sadly, almost pityingly. "Refusal isn't an option. The fragments will grow stronger, more volatile. They'll tear you apart from the inside, or worse, they'll escape entirely. Without guidance, without control, they'll unleash chaos upon both our worlds. There will be no sanctuary, no refuge. Only ruin." Elias clenched his fists, frustration boiling over. "So what am I supposed to do? How do I stop this?" "That depends on you," the doppelganger replied cryptically. "Will you seek mastery over the fragments, or will you surrender to them? Will you fight alongside those who understand their nature, or will you stand alone? These are the questions only you can answer." Before Elias could respond, the duplicate stepped back, fading gradually into transparency until it vanished altogether. The corrupted cityscape dissolved with it, replaced once again by the surreal beauty of the dreamlike realm. Alone now, Elias sank to his knees, overwhelmed by the enormity of what he'd been told. He had always prided himself on his ability to adapt, to survive. But this went far beyond anything he'd ever faced. This wasn't about strategy or strength. It was about identity, purpose, sacrifice. Who was he, really? Just a soldier, or something greater? Something other? As he wrestled with these questions, a new presence entered his awareness. At first, it was faint, a whisper brushing against the edges of his consciousness. But it grew louder, clearer, until it became unmistakable, Zanara's voice. "Elias," she called softly, her melodic tone tinged with urgency. "Can you hear me?" His head snapped up, heart pounding. "Zanara!" he shouted, scrambling to his feet. "Where are you?" "I'm here," she replied, though her physical form remained unseen. "In the sanctuary. I survived the Guardian, but—" her voice faltered, filled with uncertainty. "But I fear we may not have much time. The fragments, they're growing restless. You need to return to me. Now." "How?" Elias demanded, spinning in place. "I don't even know where I am." "Follow the paths," Zanara instructed. "The ones glowing in the air. They'll lead you back to me, and to answers." Elias hesitated, glancing at the faint outlines shimmering around him. They pulsed invitingly, beckoning him forward. Taking a deep breath, he reached out to touch one, bracing himself for whatever lay ahead. The instant his fingers grazed the glowing trail, the world dissolved once more, plunging him into another transition. This time, however, he didn't fight it. He let the current carry him, trusting, perhaps foolishly, that it would take him where he needed to go. Because deep down, he knew one thing for certain: whatever awaited him next, it would change everything.